The email landed in my inbox like a tiny digital bomb. Subject line: Mortgage payment discrepancy alert. My accounting software, usually a silent, dutiful servant, was flagging something. For 3 months, the automatic mortgage payments I'd been sending for my mother's house hadn't been registered under my name, not failed, not returned, just gone from my account's tracking. My stomach tightened. Before continuing, please share your location in the comments below. My name is Ariel Valdez. I'm 38 years old, an architect, and apparently a professional enabler. For the past 10 years, a significant chunk of my income has gone into the house I grew up in, the house my mother, Gwendolyn, still lived in with my 35-year-old brother, Jonah. It wasn't just the mortgage, though, that was the biggest line item. It was the roof that needed replacing after that storm 5 years ago, the one that cost me nearly $50,000. It was the bathroom renovation I spearheaded and paid for 2 years ago, turning a moldy disaster into something out of a magazine. It was the new HVAC system, the updated electrical, the landscaping. Every time Gwendolyn called with a crisis, I was there, checkbook open. I remember one particular Saturday about 5 years back. I was 33, buried under blueprints and dust on a construction site, pulling a double shift to hit a deadline. The air conditioning had died in the middle of a heat wave, and the client was breathing down my neck. My phone buzzed with a text from Gwendolyn, a photo of Jonah, grinning like a Cheshire cat standing next to a gleaming stainless steel range. Look, darling, Jonah's birthday bash is a success thanks to your wonderful new stove. I stared at the picture, sweat stinging my eyes. That wonderful new stove was a professional-grade monster that cost more than my first car. I bought it for her for the kitchen I'd just finished renovating, thinking she'd enjoy cooking on it. Instead, it was the centerpiece for Jonah's 30th birthday party, a lavish affair I couldn't attend because I was too busy working to pay for it. Jonah, my charming, perpetually jobless younger brother. He'd floated through life on a cloud of Gwendolyn's adoration, leaving a trail of unpaid bills and broken promises. He was 30 then, still living at home, still figuring things out. I was the one who'd put myself through architecture school, clawed my way up the ladder, and now apparently funded his existence. That night I called Gwendolyn, my voice tight with exhaustion and a resentment I tried desperately to suppress. Mom, I'm glad you're enjoying the stove, but I really needed to finish this project. I'm exhausted. Oh, Ariel, darling, she'd cooed, her voice dripping with that familiar blend of sweetness and dismissal. It's just one day. Jonah only turns 30 once. You're so good about helping out. It's the least we could do to use your lovely gift. Besides, it's for the family, isn't it? For the family. That phrase was Gwendolyn's ultimate weapon, her emotional cudgel. It was the reason I'd sacrificed my savings, my time, my sanity. It was the reason I'd swallowed the bitterness every time Jonah got praised for simply existing while I was praised for paying. I told myself it was an investment, a way to keep a piece of my childhood intact, a quiet act of love. I told myself that one day it would all be worth it, that one day they would see. But now, staring at that email, the carefully constructed illusion began to crack. 3 months. 3 months of my money vanishing into a black hole, not even registered as a payment on the house I poured my life into. My rational mind, the one that designed load-bearing walls and calculated stress points, screamed. Something was fundamentally wrong, and for the first time in a decade, the thought of for the family didn't make me swallow my resentment. It made me want to spit fire. The mortgage payment discrepancy alert email sat open on my laptop screen, a cold knot tightening in my chest. I called Gwendolyn that evening. Mom, I just got an alert from my bank. It looks like the mortgage payments for the house haven't been registering under my name for the last 3 months. Have you changed anything on your end? I tried to keep my voice even, professional, like I was discussing a minor architectural detail with a client. Gwendolyn's laugh, light and airy, floated through the phone. Oh, darling, don't fuss about such trivialities. Everything is perfectly fine. Jonah's been helping me with some of the paperwork lately. He's so good with all that digital stuff, you know. Probably just a little hiccup with the bank system. You worry too much, Ariel. A hiccup. Mom, I've been sending those payments for 10 years. This isn't a hiccup. This is 3 months of my money disappearing into a black hole. Can you check with Jonah or send me the latest statements? Honestly, Ariel, it's all handled. We're family. Just trust me. I have a bridge game in 5 minutes, darling. We'll talk later. And with that, she hung up, leaving me staring at my phone, the dial tone a mocking buzz in my ear. Trust her? That was Gwendolyn's default setting for me. Trust me and keep paying. Her dismissal, however, only fueled the icy dread. I didn't trust her. Not with this. I spent the next 2 days digging. I pulled every bank statement, every wire transfer confirmation, every receipt for every single renovation I'd ever funded. I cross-referenced dates, amounts, and beneficiaries. The money was indeed leaving my account, but it wasn't showing up on the mortgage lender's records as my payment. Then I went deeper. I accessed public property records online, something I should have done years ago but had always assumed was unnecessary because, well, family. My fingers trembled as I typed in the address of the house. The search results loaded and my breath hitched. The deed, dated 5 months ago, transferred from Gwendolyn Valdez to Jonah Valdez. My vision blurred. 5 months. That meant the transfer happened 2 months before. My payment stopped registering. My money had been going to pay a mortgage on a house that wasn't even legally my mother's anymore, let alone mine. It was Jonah's. Jonah's, who couldn't hold down a job, who still lived off Gwendolyn, who had never contributed a dime to that house. Rage, cold and pure, washed over me. I called Jonah. Jonah, I just saw the property records, the house. It's in your name. I didn't bother with pleasantries. There was a beat of silence on the other end, then a low chuckle. Oh, that? Yeah, Mom wanted to get her affairs in order. You know, for tax purposes. She figured it was time for me to, step up. Be the man of the house. His voice was laced with a smugness that made my blood boil. Step up! You haven't paid a utility bill in your life. And what about my payments? My money, the roof, the bathroom, the furnace. I put $92,000 into that house over the last decade, Jonah. Why wasn't I told? Whoa, Ariel, chill out. Mom said you were just helping out. Family, right? Besides, it's not like you were ever going to live here. You have your fancy condo. This is my legacy. Mom wanted to make sure I was taken care of. Taken care of? My voice rose. By stealing my investment? By lying to me? No one lied, Ariel. You just assumed things. It's Mom's house. She can do what she wants with it. And now it's mine. End of story. He hung up before I could respond, leaving me shaking with a fury I hadn't known I possessed. My first instinct was to burn it all down. My second, more rational one was to call Jasmine, my best friend and a brilliant corporate lawyer. But this felt too personal for even Jasmine, at least for the initial reconnaissance. I needed someone who understood real estate law, someone who knew the ins and outs of property transfers. someone I could trust despite our history. I scrolled through my contacts until I found his name, Gerard Newton, my ex-boyfriend, 41, a sharp real estate attorney. We'd ended things amicably enough 5 years ago, mostly due to my workaholic tendencies and his own demanding career. He was discreet, thorough, and owed me a few favors from back when I helped him redesign his firm's new office space. He picked up on the second ring. Ariel, long time no talk. To what do I owe the pleasure? His voice was calm, professional, exactly what I needed. Gerard, I need your help. It's about my mother's house. I think something illegal happened with the deed. I explained everything, the 10 years of payments, the email alert, the shocking discovery of the deed transfer to Jonah. He listened patiently, asking precise questions. Okay, Ariel, send me everything you have. Bank statements, transfer records, and especially a copy of that new deed. I'll pull the full chain of title and any associated documents. Give me a day or two. 2 days later, Gerard called. His voice was grim. Ariel, I got the documents. The transfer was recorded 5 months ago, just as you said. But there's something else here. He paused, and I could hear the rustle of papers. There's a consent form. It states that for the transfer to be valid, especially given your significant financial contributions in a prior family agreement, your signature was required, acknowledging and consenting to the transfer of ownership to Jonah. It's a standard clause for situations where multiple parties have invested in a property, even if only one is on the official deed. My blood ran cold. My signature? I never signed anything like that. I didn't even know about it. That's what I thought, Gerard said, his voice flat. Because the signature on this document, it's not yours, Ariel. It's a spidery scrawl, almost like someone tried to mimic your name, but poorly. It's clearly a forgery. I gripped the phone, knuckles white. A forgery? So it's not legal then? That's the tricky part, Gerard sighed. It wasn't legal, no, but the deed was filed and recorded based on this consent, and the statute of limitations for challenging a deed transfer on grounds of fraud or forgery, especially if it's been recorded, can be surprisingly short in some jurisdictions. In our state, it's typically 3 months from the date of discovery, but it can be as little as 6 months from the date of recording. This was recorded 5 months ago. We're on the very edge or potentially past the easiest window to challenge it without a much more complex, expensive, and drawn-out legal battle. My mother had forged my signature, and she had done it just in time for the legal window to slam shut. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. The revelation of the forged signature, coupled with the tight legal window, hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just a betrayal of trust, it was an active, calculated deception. My mother, Gwendolyn, 60 years old, had deliberately committed fraud, and Jonah, 35, had been complicit, basking in the glow of his undeserved inheritance. I called Gwendolyn again, my voice devoid of emotion. Gerard Newton just confirmed it, Mom. You forged my signature on the consent form for the deed transfer. That's fraud. There was a long silence on the other end, then a sharp intake of breath. Ariel, darling, don't be so dramatic. It wasn't a forgery, not really. It was just a formality. You were always so busy, and we just wanted to make things official. It was for Jonah, you know. He needs a stable foundation. Her voice, usually so confident, wavered slightly. A formality? You signed my name to a legal document without my knowledge or consent, transferring ownership of a property I've invested nearly $100,000 into to a brother who's never worked a day in his life. That's not a formality, Mom. That's a crime. Don't you dare accuse me of such things. Her voice hardened, regaining its usual imperiousness. You were just helping out, Ariel. You always said you were doing it for the family. This is for the family. Jonah needs this house. You have your own life, your own successful career. You never had the heart of a homemaker, darling. You were always too focused on your spreadsheets and your buildings. This house, it needs a man's touch. Jonah will make it a home. The sheer audacity, the gaslighting, the casual dismissal of my decade of sacrifice, all wrapped up in that saccharine tone. A man's touch, I scoffed. Jonah's touch involves remodeling the garage into a man cave with a pool table and a beer fridge, probably using money I sent for property taxes. He hasn't lifted a finger to maintain that house, Mom. He's a parasite. That's enough, Ariel. You're being cruel. This conversation is over. She hung up again. A few days later, Gwendolyn insisted on a family dinner. I knew it was a performance, a way for her to reassert control and present a united front. I went, partly out of a morbid curiosity, partly because a small masochistic part of me wanted to see how far they'd push it. The dinner was a disaster. Jonah, oblivious or simply uncaring, was in rare form. He regaled us with tales of his man cave progress, boasting about the new sound system and the custom bar he was installing. It's really coming along, Ariel, he said, taking a large bite of the pot roast Gwendolyn had prepared. You should come check it out sometime. It's going to be epic, thanks to Mom, of course, for setting me up. He didn't even look at me when he said it, just a casual wave of his hand, as if my contributions were as insignificant as dust motes. Gwendolyn beamed at him. Yes, my son is finally settling down. It's wonderful to see him take responsibility. He's always been so charming, so full of life, not like some people who are all work and no play. She glanced pointedly at me. The air in the dining room, usually thick with the scent of Gwendolyn's expensive perfumes, felt suffocating. I picked at my food, a cold rage simmering beneath my calm exterior. Then Gwendolyn clinked her glass. Now, I have an announcement. As you all know, this house has been a cherished family home for decades. And while Ariel has been so generous in helping us maintain it, it's always been my intention for it to pass to the next generation, to someone who truly appreciates a home and family. So I've decided to make it official. Jonah will be the sole inheritor of this house. It's his now, legally and spiritually. He has the heart of a homemaker, a true family man. She smiled, a triumphant, self-satisfied expression. Jonah preened, puffing out his chest. Thanks, Mama. I won't let you down. My forks clattered against my plate. Spiritually? Heart of a homemaker? The woman who had just forged my signature, who had dismissed my decade of financial and emotional investment, was now publicly declaring that Jonah, the freeloading gambler, was the worthy heir. Something inside me snapped. The illusion of familial love, the one I'd clung to for so long, shattered into a million irreparable pieces. This wasn't about love. It was about control, about appearances, about Gwendolyn's twisted favoritism, and I was done. Done being the good daughter, done being the invisible ATM. They needed a lesson so profound, so public, so utterly devastating, they would never forget it. Later that night, back in my quiet, meticulously organized condo, I sat at my desk. Gerard's words echoed in my head. The statute of limitations for challenging a deed transfer on grounds of fraud or forgery can be as little as 6 months from the date of recording. We were just past that. Challenging the deed based on the forgery alone would be a long uphill battle, but Gerard had also mentioned the prior family agreement, that necessitated my consent signature in the first place. That agreement had been an informal understanding, a handshake deal from years ago when I first started pouring money into the house, but it had been referenced in the legal boilerplate of the consent form. I pulled out an old, dusty box from the back of my closet. Inside were old files, permits, and receipts from the very first renovation I'd ever funded for the house, the roof repair 5 years ago. I sifted through them, my fingers tracing the familiar lines of my own handwriting, and then I saw it. Not just a permit, but a separate comprehensive renovation investment agreement that had been required by the city alongside the permit for any major structural work involving significant external funding. It was a boilerplate document designed to protect all parties involved in such complex projects. Buried deep within the fine print, a clause I hadn't paid much attention to at the time, dismissed as standard legal jargon. It stated that if the property were to be sold or its ownership transferred without the explicit, signed consent of all parties listed on this specific agreement, then the deed would revert to the party who initiated and funded the renovation, me. And no one, absolutely no one, had ever asked for my signed consent on this document for the transfer to Jonah. This wasn't a general consent form. This was tied to specific documented work I had funded with a specific legally binding clause. The forged signature on the other document was a problem, but this was a loophole, a very big, very legal loophole, and it was mine. The renovation investment agreement lay on my desk, a yellowed, forgotten relic that suddenly held the weight of my entire future. The specific clause buried in the fine print was a cold, hard fact. If the property was transferred without my explicit signed consent on this document, the deed reverted to me, and I had never signed anything like it for Jonah's transfer. This wasn't just a loophole, it was a lifeline. My first call the next morning was to Jasmine Freeman. Jasmine, 39, was my best friend and a corporate lawyer whose mind worked faster than anyone I knew. She was sharp, witty, and fiercely loyal. Jazz, I need your brain and possibly your legal muscle. I found something. I explained everything, the forged signature, Gerard's initial assessment, and then the discovery of the renovation investment agreement. I emailed her a scanned copy of the document while I spoke. She listened, her usual rapid-fire questions punctuated by thoughtful hums. Ariel, this is beautiful, she finally said, a note of awe in her voice. A city-mandated agreement for significant structural work requiring all major financial contributors to sign off on future transfers? That's a very specific, very niche kind of protection. It's not about general consent, it's about this specific project and your specific investment. It's brilliant. And if Gwendolyn didn't get your signature on this for the transfer to Jonah, then the deed is null and void, and it reverts to you. So, it overrides the forged signature on the other document? I asked, a sliver of hope piercing through my long-held despair. Absolutely. The forged document was a general consent for transfer. This agreement is a prior, specific, and legally recorded condition tied to the property's improvements. It acts as a pre-existing encumbrance. It's like a contractual lien that dictates ownership in the event of an unconsented transfer. You have a very strong case, Ariel, a very strong case indeed. So what's the plan? We gather everything, every single wire transfer, every receipt for materials, every contractor invoice, every email, every text message related to your financial contributions. We build a binder so thick it could stop a bullet. Then we draft a formal notice of deed reversion citing this agreement. We send it to Gwendolyn, to Jonah, and we file it with the county recorder's office. This isn't just about getting the house back, it's about making them face the consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, my condo became a war room. I printed bank statements, organized receipts by date and project, and compiled a meticulous timeline of my financial contributions. The stack of paper grew into a formidable binder, each page a testament to my invisible labor. The total, as I'd calculated before, was $92,000, every penny documented. While Jasmine worked on the legal drafting, I started another line of inquiry. Jonah. He was still living in the house, still boasting about his man cave. I knew he was irresponsible, but how deep did it go? The outline had mentioned Allison, his on again, off again girlfriend. I knew she was often frustrated with him. I decided to reach out. I sent Allison Garrett, 33, a carefully worded text. Hey, Allison, it's Ariel. Hope you're doing okay. Heard Jonah's been working on the garage. Just checking in, making sure everything's all right with him. He seems a bit stressed lately. It was a fishing expedition designed to sound like concerned family, not a vengeful sister. Allison responded surprisingly quickly. Stressed? That's one word for it. He's a mess, Ariel. He's been blowing through money like water, and not just on the man cave. He's weeks behind on the property taxes for the house, and his car's about to get repossessed. He even got into some trouble with a bookie a few months ago. Had to borrow a ton from his friends to cover it. Says he'll pay them back when he comes into money. My blood ran cold. Property taxes, car loan, gambling debts. Jonah wasn't just irresponsible, he was a financial sinkhole. This information was golden. It painted a clear picture of why Gwendolyn might have rushed the deed transfer to protect him from his own self-destruction and to secure his future, all at my expense. A few days later, Gwendolyn called, inviting me to her weekly bridge club gathering. Darling, you haven't been around enough lately. Come join us for tea and cards. Mila will be there, and she always asks about you. It was clearly an attempt to reestablish normalcy, to parade me around as the good daughter who had put the unpleasantness behind her. I accepted. I needed to see Gwendolyn in her element, and I needed to gather more intelligence. The bridge club was exactly as I remembered, a flurry of elegant women, clinking teacups and hushed gossip. Gwendolyn, 60, was in her element, holding court, her laughter tinkling a little too loudly. Mila Wilson, 52, Gwendolyn's oldest friend, caught my eye and offered a small, sympathetic smile. Mila had always been the quiet observer, the one who saw through Gwendolyn's carefully constructed facade. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself next to Mila by the refreshment table. Ariel, dear, it's good to see you, she murmured, her voice soft. You've been so busy with your work, and the house, of course. Your mother is very proud of Jonah, you know. There was a subtle irony in her tone. Yes, I've heard, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. He's certainly enjoying his new responsibilities. Mila leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. Speaking of responsibilities, Gwendolyn has been very focused on her legacy lately. She's been making quite a show of updating her will. She told us all at the last meeting that she's making sure everything, absolutely everything, goes to Jonah. She wants to make a grand announcement at her 60th birthday party next month. Says it's her way of ensuring his future. Everything to Jonah, she keeps saying. It's quite dramatic, really. My mother's 60th birthday party next month. The pieces clicked into place. Gwendolyn wasn't just giving him the house, she was going to publicly disinherit me. It wouldn't just be a betrayal, it would be a public humiliation. A cold, precise plan began to form in my mind. This wasn't just about getting my house back. It was about exposing the truth, about stripping away Gwendolyn's carefully curated image, and about making them both pay for a decade of invisible labor and blatant lies. The birthday party. That was the stage. The information from Mila about Gwendolyn's dramatic will update to be announced at her 60th birthday party solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about public humiliation, about Gwendolyn cementing Jonah's favoritism in front of everyone. Fine, two could play that game. My strategy shifted. I would fake submission. I would become the perfect, dutiful daughter, the one who had put the unpleasantness behind her. I would lull them into a false sense of security, then strike when they least expected it. The birthday party was in a month. That gave me enough time. I started showing up for brunches Gwendolyn hosted, something I usually avoided. I complimented her new outfits, listened patiently to her endless stories about Jonah's potential, and even offered to help with the party planning. "Oh, Ariel, darling, you're being so sweet," Gwendolyn cooed one afternoon as we sat in her living room, ostensibly discussing floral arrangements. "I knew you'd come around. Family is family, after all, and you're so good at organizing." I forced a smile. "Of course, Mom. It's your big day. I want it to be perfect." I even bought her a ridiculously expensive custom-made $300 cake for the party, featuring delicate sugar flowers and a gold leaf 60. It was a prop, a symbol of my feigned devotion, and it felt like a small, bitter victory to pay for it, knowing what was coming. Behind the scenes, the real work was underway. Jasmine and I were moving at lightning speed. We had the binder of financial records, the renovation investment agreement, and the formal notice of deed reversion drafted. Jasmine explained the legal process. "We'll file the notice of reversion with the county recorder's office. That officially puts the world on notice that the deed to Jonah is being challenged and is likely invalid. It creates a cloud on the title, making it impossible for Jonah to sell or mortgage the property without resolving this. Then we serve Gwendolyn and Jonah with the notice." "When do we serve them?" I asked, a cold calculation in my voice. Jasmine smiled, a glint in her eye. "We serve them at the party, publicly. It will be undeniable, and it will ensure everyone knows." The idea of serving them at the party in front of Gwendolyn's friends and family was a delicious thought. It would be the ultimate mic drop. I also reached out to Gerard. He had been instrumental in uncovering the forged signature, and he knew the intricacies of the case. "Gerard, I need your help again. I'm going to challenge the deed based on the renovation investment agreement. I need you to be there as an impartial legal expert to confirm the validity of my claim." He was quiet for a moment. "Ariel, this is going to get ugly. Are you sure you want to do this?" "They forged my signature, Gerard. They stole my investment. They publicly humiliated me." "I'm beyond sure, and I need someone there who can verify the legal facts when the chaos erupts." "Okay," he finally said. "I'll be there. I'll even testify if it comes to that about the forged signature on the other document. It might not be the primary legal path, but it will certainly add weight to your claim and expose Gwendolyn's deception." "Thank you, Gerard. It means a lot." His willingness to help, despite our past, was a testament to his integrity. He saw the injustice. As the party date approached, my anxiety mingled with a strange sense of calm. I had done my homework. I had my evidence. I had my legal team, even if it was just Jasmine and a supportive ex. The day before the party, Jasmine sent me the final signed and notarized deed reversion documents. The official notice of deed reversion filed with the county recorder's office. The formal letter to Gwendolyn and Jonah, informing them of the invalidity of the previous transfer and the automatic reversion of the property to me, and a summary of all my financial contributions, meticulously itemized and totaled. I laid them out on my dining table, the thick binder of receipts, the official notice of deed reversion, the letter, and the copy of the renovation investment agreement. Each document was a brick in the wall of my defense, a weapon in my arsenal. I took a large plain manila envelope. I carefully placed the original notice of deed reversion, the letter to Gwendolyn and Jonah, and a summary sheet of the $90,000 undocumented payments into it. I paused, then picked up a black marker. With a steady hand, I inscribed one sentence across the front of the envelope. Here's your legacy. The day of Gwendolyn's 60th birthday party dawned bright and deceptively cheerful. I arrived at the house precisely on time, the manila envelope clutched in my hand, hidden inside my navy blazer. The house, the one I had poured my life into, was buzzing with activity. Gwendolyn had spared no expense. The living room, with its newly polished hardwood floors, my expense, of course, was filled with her bridge club friends, distant relatives, and a few of Jonah's hangers-on. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume. Gwendolyn, radiant in a shimmering sapphire dress, greeted me with a theatrical hug. Ariel, darling, you made it. And look, you brought the cake. It's absolutely divine. She gestured to the $300 custom cake, now proudly displayed on the dining room table, a beacon of my feigned affection. Of course, Mom, I said, my smile tight. Wouldn't miss it for the world. I spotted Jasmine across the room, already blending in, observing. She gave me a subtle nod. Jared was there too, standing near the fireplace, looking impeccably professional in a charcoal suit. He acknowledged me with a slight dip of his head. Mila Wilson, Gwendolyn's friend, was chatting quietly with a few other women, but her eyes found mine, a knowing look passing between us. Jonah, 35, was holding court by the newly renovated man cave garage entrance, a beer in his hand, laughing loudly. He looked disheveled, even in his party clothes. Allison, his on-again, off-again girlfriend, stood a little apart from him, looking uncomfortable. The party progressed, a symphony of polite chatter and forced laughter. I made small talk, accepted compliments on my generosity with the house renovations, and watched. Gwendolyn floated from guest to guest, soaking up the adoration, the picture of a beloved matriarch. Finally, the moment arrived. Gwendolyn clinked her champagne glass, the sound echoing through the crowded room. A hush fell. My dearest friends and family, Gwendolyn began, her voice clear and resonant. Thank you all for celebrating this milestone with me. It means the world to have you all here in my beautiful home. She paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Jonah stepped forward, swaying slightly. And I just want to say a huge thank you to my amazing mama, he slurred, raising his own glass. She's always been there for me, always seen my potential, always believed in my shine. This house, it's going to be the foundation for my future, thanks to her. She's the best mother a guy could ask for. He finished with a flourish, nearly spilling his drink. A few polite claps rippled through the room. Gwendolyn smiled, a proud, almost smug expression on her face. Thank you, my darling boy. You truly are the light of my life. She turned back to the crowd, her voice rising in volume. And now, for the announcement I've been so eager to share. As many of you know, I've been updating my affairs, ensuring my legacy is properly managed. After much thought, I've decided to make it clear for everyone present that everything I have, everything I've built, everything that truly matters. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the room, lingering on me for a fraction of a second, a triumphant glint in her eye. I leave to my son, Jonah, this house, my assets, my entire estate. It all goes to him. He is my sole heir. He is my legacy. A collective murmur went through the room. Some looked surprised, others exchanged knowing glances. Mila's eyes were fixed on me. This was it, the public disinheritance, the final erasure of my contributions. I took a deep breath. The $300 cake with its delicate sugar flowers sat innocently on the table. I stood slowly, deliberately. The navy blazer felt heavy on my shoulders. All eyes turned to me. Gwendolyn's triumphant smile faltered. Jonah, still swaying, looked at me with a bewildered expression. I unzipped my navy blazer. My hand went inside, pulling out the manila envelope. It was thick, substantial. The words I had inscribed on it, "Here's your legacy," faced outward. My gaze locked with Gwendolyn's. Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear replacing her earlier smugness. With a calm, steady motion, I walked to the dining table. I didn't break eye contact with my mother. And then, with a soft thud, I dropped the manila envelope containing the formal notice of deed reversion, the letter to Gwendolyn and Jonah, and the summary of my $92,000 in documented payments directly onto the center of the birthday cake. The delicate sugar flowers crumbled slightly under its weight. A collective gasp rippled through the elegant living room. The silence that followed my action was deafening, broken only by the faint clinking of champagne glasses as some guests froze mid-sip. All eyes were on the manila envelope, now resting squarely on Gwendolyn's pristine birthday cake. "Here's your legacy," starkly visible. Gwendolyn's face, usually so composed, contorted in horror. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, darted from the envelope to me, then back to the envelope. She snatched it off the cake as if it were a venomous snake, scattering a few sugar flowers onto the tablecloth. Her fingers fumbled with the flap, tearing it open. As she pulled out the documents, the formal notice of deed reversion, the letter, the summary of my $92,000, her face drained of all color. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice a thin, reedy sound, completely unlike her usual commanding tone. Her eyes scanned the first few lines of the notice, then darted to the itemized list of payments. Jonah, who had been staring in drunken confusion, finally lurched forward. "What the hell, Ariel? What did you do?" He tried to grab the papers from Gwendolyn, but she clutched them tighter. "This is a formal notice, Jonah," I said, my voice cutting through the stunned silence, calm and clear. "The deed transfer for this house from Mom to you is invalid. It reverts to me, effective immediately." A low murmur started to spread through the guests. Gwendolyn's Bridge Club friends exchanged bewildered glances. "Invalid? What are you talking about?" Jonah stammered, his bravado crumbling. "The renovation investment agreement," I stated, looking directly at Gwendolyn. "The one for the roof repair 5 years ago. It states that if the property is transferred without my explicit signed consent on that specific agreement, the deed reverts to me." "You never got my signature on it for your transfer to Jonah. You forged my signature on a different document, but not the one that actually mattered." Gwendolyn's eyes snapped to mine, a mixture of fury and dawning realization in their depths. She remembered, she must have, the legal boilerplate, the clause she dismissed as irrelevant. Suddenly, a quiet, almost imperceptible sound broke through the tension. Mila Wilson, Gwendolyn's oldest friend, stood near the back of the room. She was watching me, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. Then slowly, deliberately, she brought her hands together. Clap. One soft, solitary clap, then another and another. A few other guests, Mostly older women from the bridge club who had perhaps seen Gwendolyn's true colors over the years, looked at Mala, then at me, a flicker of understanding in their eyes. "This is ridiculous!" Gwendolyn shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is my house. I gave it to my son." "You can't do this." "Actually, she can." Gerard Newton stepped forward, his voice calm and authoritative. He held a tablet in his hand. "As Ariel's former counsel on a related matter, and having reviewed the documents, the renovation investment agreement appears to be a legally binding contract. Its terms regarding deed reversion in the event of an unconsented transfer are clear and enforceable. The county recorder's office has already been notified of the reversion." Gwendolyn stared at Gerard, then at the papers in her trembling hands. The realization hit her. She hadn't just given the house to Jonah, she had inadvertently signed away her own rights months ago by failing to get my proper consent on the crucial document. She had been so focused on cutting me out, on securing Jonah's future, that she'd overlooked the very clause designed to protect my investment. The irony was brutal. You tricked me!" Gwendolyn screamed, her face contorted with rage, pointing a trembling finger at me. "Tricked you?" I took a step closer, my voice low but carrying. "For 10 years I poured my money, my time, my expertise into this house. I fixed your roof, renovated your bathrooms, paid your mortgage. And for 10 years you dismissed it as helping out. While you groomed Jonah to inherit everything I built, you forged my signature. You publicly announced my disinheritance. You wanted to erase me." I looked around the stunned room at the faces of the guests, at Jonah, who now looked utterly bewildered and terrified. My gaze settled back on Gwendolyn, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. "This is what legacy looks like," I said, my voice rising, "when you mistake silence for obedience." Jonah, suddenly snapping out of his stupor, let out a guttural roar. "You bitch, you can't do this. This is my house." "Mama gave it to me." He lunged forward, his eyes wild, reaching for the papers Gwendolyn still clutched, as if he could somehow undo what was happening. But before he could reach her, Allison Garrett, who had been standing quietly at the edge of the group, moved swiftly. She grabbed Jonah's arm, pulling him back with surprising force. "Jonah, stop it!" Allison cried, her voice strained. "You're making a fool of yourself, and for what? You can't even pay the property taxes. You're weeks behind. You're about to lose your car. And what about your gambling debts, huh? The ones you owe to Tony and his friends? The ones you swore you'd pay back when you came into money?" The room went silent again, a different kind of silence, a shocked, horrified silence. Gwendolyn's eyes widened further, if that was possible. Jonah froze, his face pale and his mouth agape. Allison, tears welling in her eyes, finally let go of his arm and stumbled back, clearly regretting her outburst but unable to take it back. "Gambling debts?" Gwendolyn whispered, her gaze fixed on Jonah, the betrayal now turning inward. I looked at Jonah, then at my mother. The web of denial was unraveling thread by thread. "As of tomorrow morning," I announced, my voice cutting through the stunned silence, "this property will be legally mine. And I've already had the locks changed." The silence that descended after Allison's outburst was heavier than any I'd ever experienced. The party, moments ago a symphony of polite chatter, disintegrated. Guests awkwardly shuffled their feet, avoiding eye contact. Gwendolyn, her face a mask of shock and fury, stared at Jonah, the words "gambling debts" hanging in the air between them. Jonah, pale and sweating, looked like a cornered animal. I watched them, a strange mix of relief and devastation washing over me. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about the complete public unraveling of their carefully constructed reality. I think it's time for everyone to leave, I said, my voice calm, cutting through the thick tension. The party is over. No one argued. Guests began to quietly collect their belongings, their whispers growing louder as they hurried out the door. Mila gave me a small, firm nod as she passed, a silent acknowledgement. Gerard lingered for a moment, meeting my gaze. "Call me," he murmured before heading out. Allison, her face streaked with tears, pulled Jonah towards the door. He didn't resist. His shoulders slumped. Gwendolyn stood alone in the center of the room, the crumpled document still clutched in her hand, the ruined cake a symbol of her shattered illusion. She looked at me, her eyes blazing with a hatred so raw it almost made me flinch. But I held her gaze. I left the house shortly after, the front door clicking shut behind me. The air outside was cool, crisp. I took a deep, shuddering breath. It was done. The next morning I drove back to the house. The locksmith had already been there. The old locks, the ones I'd paid to install years ago, were gone, replaced with new secure ones. I used the new key, the click of the tumblers a satisfying sound. The house was empty, eerily quiet. Jonah's man cave in the garage was still there, but the beer fridge was unplugged, the pool table dusty. His few belongings were gone. Gwendolyn's expensive perfumes no longer lingered in the air. It was just a house, my house, the one I had poured my life into. Walking through the quiet rooms, I felt a profound sense of peace, but also a hollow ache. The victory was mine, but the cost was the complete severing of my family. Within days, the gossip spread like wildfire through Gwendolyn's social circles. The story of the birthday party, the deed, Jonah's gambling debts, it was all anyone could talk about. Gwendolyn Valdez, the elegant matriarch, was suddenly the subject of hushed whispers and pitying glances. She was forced to move quickly. Without the house and with her assets tied up in legal limbo, she couldn't maintain her previous lifestyle. She ended up in a modest two-bedroom condo on the outskirts of town, a stark contrast to the sprawling home she had so carefully maintained for appearances. I heard about it from Mila, who called me a few weeks later. "She's furious, Ariel," Mila whispered, her voice tinged with a mix of sympathy and satisfaction. "Threatening to sue you, to dispute the deed, to claim you manipulated her. She's telling everyone you're a monster." "Let her," I said, my voice steady. "She signed the renovation investment agreement. She forged my signature on the other document. The truth is on my side." "Indeed it is," Mila agreed. "And Gerard Newton has been very helpful. He's been letting it be known, very quietly, that if Gwendolyn pursues this, he's prepared to testify about the forged signature. That's shut her up for now. She doesn't want that kind of public exposure." Jonah, meanwhile, became the town pariah. His gambling debts were no longer a secret, and without the house he had nowhere to go. Allison had finally broken up with him for good after the party. He bounced from couch to couch, a cautionary tale whispered among his former friends. The man cave was now just an empty garage. I kept the house. It felt right. It was a tangible representation of my years of unseen labor, my sacrifice. I didn't want to live there. My condo was my sanctuary. Instead, I established an LLC and began the process of renting it out. The rental income after expenses was substantial. I decided to donate a significant portion of the profits quarterly to a local women's shelter. It felt like a way to take something that had been built on a lie and turn it into something genuinely good, something that truly helped people build a foundation. My relationship with Gwendolyn and Jonah was irrevocably broken. There were no apologies, no attempts at reconciliation, just silence. It was a heavy silence filled with the echoes of a decade of resentment, but it was also a quiet space, finally free of their demands. Revenge didn't feel like fire, it felt like air. Finally breathing, finally mine,